Her Royal Highness is expecting another child, I hear.
Well, she should be happy.
She would be, were it not for her father, the English Prince Consort.
What's he saying now?
He's ill, Herr von Bismarck. He's worn himself out, I think, trying to manage countries that are not his. Ours, for instance. I understand he's failing. Have you not heard?
I do not follow affairs in England. Nor do I sniff around the court. Why do you hang around them, Moltke? I thought you were a soldier.
I am the Crown Prince's aide. I cannot easily leave. Besides, it keeps me near the king.
How's the king?
Confused. He's gone off to Ems to drink sulfur, which he finds more efficacious than the advice of his ministers, who've become somewhat progressive.
Well, Prussia is becoming full of liberals, huh? They'd be the death of us. I advised against it, but nobody listens to me. They relieved me of my post at Frankfurt because I was too reactionary for them and rude to the Austrians. No, I'm to go to Paris as ambassador. Oh, the Anglo-Coburgs are breeding again. One fades and another pops out. One should beware of sentimental alliances, Moltke. English marriages, Austrian pacts, they're not the way. Prussia should stand proudly behind her ruler.
And behind her ruler, the army should be the power.
Generals are bad politicians. They have no vision, except along a gun's sight. No, the king should send for me. He knows that. But he dare not. Since the upset of '48, kings are afraid to rule.
When will you go to Paris?
I may not go. I have the feeling I should stay in Berlin. Things there may change.
You mean you will change them?
The river of history runs as it will, my dear Moltke. If I put my hand into it, it's because I regard it as my duty, not because I think I can alter its course. How ill is the English Prince Consort?
They say he's dying.
I would be a screen between your majesty and your subjects.
And Parliament, Herr Bismarck?
Perfectly simple. Ignore them. Just spend the taxes.
They would cut off your head. And mine. In the Opera Place. Beneath my windows.
I would have died fighting in the cause of my king. And you, in affirming your divine right. What difference? Whether it's the scaffold or the battlefield.
I doubt if your colleagues will agree.
As minister-president, I would have no colleagues, only subordinates. I would serve God through serving my king.
But there'll still be a crown council. I shall wish Bernstorff to remain as
And I may as well go back and be a farmer.
For God's sake, don't do that! I don't know what to do. Everyone is against me. Today, I saw the Crown Prince. I drew this up. It's an instrument of abdication. It's my last hope. Oh, thank you.
The point is whether we are to have royal government or the rule of the mob. I have no faith in liberal public feeling. There's only one policy. Only outside Prussia can we strengthen our position inside. But I must have control.
But Bismarck, remember, I am your sovereign.
I will always submit to your majesty's orders, even if I disagree with them. One day, you will be emperor of all Germany.
I don't want to be emperor of Germany.
But your son does. And who will guide him? You can tear that up.
You are a red reactionary, Bismarck, but you may kiss hands.
shall do my duty. It's God's affair to give me understanding.
Well, you'd better have this.
Excuse me, Your Royal Highness. I find it extremely warm.
In England, we should have the windows wide open on such a night.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't like Berlin and all this.
You come from Schönhausen in East Prussia.
That's just right.
What sort of a place is it?
Small, maize growing, full of autumn leaves now. In May, the bare bushes around the house turn into mountains of white blossom.
You're fond of nature?
I miss my trees and my family.
I'm engaged in making a little garden here for my children. The swing, seesaw, giant slides.
Your Royal Highness has a considerable family now.
If you think 3 considerable.
Whom you will bring up in the English manner.
I hope I shall bring them up to be good Germans.
Yes. You still have time to study politics.
I was taught to appreciate political matters. I would not consider myself a good wife else.
You're ambitious, ma'am. For your husband.
And for my country.
Which?
I am a Prussian now, Herr von Bismarck, and a deeply patriotic one. All the more so, I trust, for not being blind.
I'm a patriot too, Your Royal Highness. I serve my king.
He is the most ill-mannered.
He wants my throne.
Youth is careless with words, sir.
Don't choose between father and son. That's what this is. I'll have him removed from council and court. I'll relieve him of his command. I'll lock him up.
Your Majesty.
He's my only son, and he betrays me.
He's only, if I may say so, a young man who is too fond of his appearances and his wife. Those ideas are not his. They come from Windsor.
They all want me to die.
Germany does. But Your Majesty shouldn't be seen to be too hard on his son. Better quietly exclude him from your confidence. Anything he learns gets back to London.
You think so?
It is plain. But don't dishonor him. He's your heir. Let him be a decoration and a soldier. That'll do no harm. It's the princess, with all respect. Your Majesty should put the gag and bridle on.
I used to burn her father's lettuce.
If I may advise you, sir, forbid him to speak again, except to you. Keep them both out of the way, and I'll put some paid ears in their household, if you consent.
I suppose I must.
Deal gently with the young man, Absalom. I trust His Majesty was not too much moved. I did what I could.
I asked my father to forgive the annoyance and pain I had caused him. I cannot take back the words I spoke, but in the future I shall be silent.
That would be best.
The king now knows I'm an opponent of the government.
I, too.
On that understanding, I'm prepared to regard the matter as closed. You will no doubt wish to forgive and forget.
I often forget, Your Highness, but I never forgive. I was a young man, I used to dream of a powerful and influential Prussia.
Not a unified Germany?
Ah, that's a liberal idea. Germany, united by a constitution, under an elected parliament. I have no time for that humanitarian twaddle, wine or beer.
Neither.
But if we unite Germany under the Prussian army, they'll steal their thunder.
The Austrians wouldn't let us.
And make them.
You want war?
It's a clumsy method, but one tries every way. The most dangerous last. They have condescended to us long enough. There's no room for both of us in Germany.
We would have no allies.
Neither will they. I don't seek the collapse of Austria. All I want is to establish Prussian leadership in Germany so that the other states know which side their bread is buttered.
Will Parliament agree?
They won't be asked. Those questions will not be decided by speeches or resolutions of majorities, but by iron and blood. How certain can you be?
Nothing in war is certain.
I dislike war. You can't control it. But I'm God's soldier and must go where he wants. One quick victory in the field.
I'll make the arrangements.
We must occupy Vienna.
No, Your Majesty.
The army must march through it.
And precipitate a general conflict?
Why not? The commanders are prepared.
Then they are fools. We will not make Prussia stronger by taking 1 yard of Austrian land.
The Austrians have lost.
And we won our prize. Now let's go home and bargain.
I will not agree.
Am I Your Majesty's Minister President or not? Let each tribe stay in its own lands. What would we gain by subduing Austria?
Power in Hungary and in the Balkans.
Hungary is full of Catholic Magyars. Let them keep it. And the Balkans aren't worth the healthy bones of one single Pomeranian grenadier. Let the others fight their own battles. War should only be used for a policy worth its sacrifices. Oh, one who's seen men dying on the battlefield. I have. Lightly fight.
Oh, don't cry, man.
His tears are political.
If Your Majesty won't agree, I can no longer serve you. I began this war. If I can't end it, I may as well be dead.
Come back, Bismarck. Don't be a fool. God sake, man! Control yourself! Come back, Bismarck.
Hurry up, Bismarck. Sit down and be reasonable.
But Your Majesty will not listen to me!
Listen to him, Father.
I began this war for a political purpose. Now it's achieved, and everything else is nonsense. We have shown Europe our strength. Now we must use it wisely. We shall at least need the neutrality of Austria if ever we have to fight Russia or France.
I agree with Count von Bismarck.
You agree with
In this
Bismarck?
case,
I'm flattered.
we will return to Berlin and negotiate.
With strength.
Enough blood has been shed.
His Royal Highness the Crown Prince speaks with good sense and humanity.
You're all against me.
This is disgusting.
Let us go home to our families.
This is German champagne.
It tastes like it, Your Majesty.
Oh, I drink it for economy and from patriotism. Help yourself.
I'm afraid my patriotism stops short of my stomach. French champagne is better. We could put ourselves in the way of acquiring some of it.
I want no trouble with France.
We shall not avoid it, Your Majesty. The French will not stand by and let us grow, now that we have beaten Austria.
Will the French attack us?
If they're provoked to, then.
What will happen?
But don't be afraid. We have the industry, the will, the best army, and the biggest guns in Europe. The real power lies with us.
May I light that for you, Herr Bismarck?
No, Count Bismarck. I've made him a count now.
Can you?
I'm sure I can.
No. Ah. There's a good boy, Willikins.
I can ride now, too. And one day I shall be King of Prussia and Emperor of Germany and ride at the head of my troops.
Don't be so restless. Your wobble the table is not very strong.
I can.
Now, I don't agree with you. We can never match France.
We can if all Germany joins her force behind ours. And she will if the French attack us. And we shall win, Your Majesty, and be the unchallenged leaders of Europe.
I want no part in it. There's no logic to it.
Politics are not based on logic, sir. They are the capacity for choosing the most useful way.
I want to reign here in peace.
Why has Grandpa gone? Have you offended him?
Oh, no. Elderly gentlemen sometimes have trouble with their bladders.
How will you manage
My bladder?
to make war with France?
Oh. We shall name your cousin, Prince Leopold, heir to the Spanish throne. The Spaniards will be glad to have a Hohenzollern, but the French will object and demand us to withdraw him. When we refuse, they will attack. Well, that's a secret. Huh?
Ah. This is a draft of the telegram His Majesty would like sent to the French.
Must be something in the water. His Majesty is too lenient. There's only one way to answer an ultimatum. And that is with another one. There. Now it may go to Paris.
In the summer of 1870, Bismarck provoked France into attacking Prussia. As he had calculated, the German states put their forces under Prussian command.
Thank you, Your Highness.
Is it?
Tell them.
I will not shell unarmed citizens, women and children.
Paris is Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not Vienna.
We shall reduce it by siege.
It will take too long.
I do not want the slaughter of France.
Because she is a friend of England. And the Crown Princess and her family forbid it.
My wife is loyal. She is my wisest advisor.
She's against us.
That is not so.
It's said in Berlin.
I do not care what lies are told in Berlin. It is the generals here that support me.
They should all be hanged.
I will tell them.
Your Royal Highness, do you really want England, or perhaps Russia, to join against us. I don't give a fig for France. I don't want 1 inch of French soil, but I want it ended. There are more important things than a few French souls. I have work to do in Berlin.
Then I shall ask my father to have you sent there.
Do? I'm only His Majesty's poor clerk. But if your Royal Highness takes his place, I hope you'll find servants as faithful as I am to your father. But I do not intend to be one of them.
Yet, there is one matter of state in which we need each other.
Oh.
The unification of Germany. It is urgent that the German parliaments offer the imperial crown to my father.
You think it will be like in England? Democratic and constitutional? It will never be.
It will be as I wish it.
But your Royal Highness is not king yet. And the king will not accept it unless it's offered by the princes. However, as you are so anxious, we can arrange it together.
How will you persuade them?
I'll pay them.
I will not be German emperor.
All the princes beg you, sir.
I will not change the crown of Prussia for a crown of filth.
Parliament invites you, father.
Do they expect me to pick up my crown from the gutter? I have mine from God. I'm an old man. You won't take advantage of me.
His Majesty is like a horse. He takes fright at any unaccustomed object and grows obstinate if driven, but gradually gets used to it.
Then you must coax him.
There's no need. The Crown Prince will do it. He has emperor madness. As if it mattered who reigns. I will govern Germany.
Bismarck had been for 2 decades master of Germany and honest broker of the continent. The Iron Chancellor.
When I die, I should like them to sling my body in a hammock between 2 of these trees. It's a burial custom of a primitive type somewhere. I should like that.
You will have many more years, Your Excellency.
The first 70 years of a man's life are the happiest. But if my wife is called away, I do not wish to remain behind. Did you bring the pension bill draft?
Yes.
Men are like animals. They are contented as long as they are well fed and secured. Now the state will provide for them. That will take the wind out of the sails of the socialists.
At a cost?
A revolution will have cost a great deal more. Leave it. I'll read it tonight.
You need to.
I must know everything. But I'm bored, Holstein. The great work is done.
When the Emperor dies,
Things will not change.
the Crown Prince will want reforms.
And he will find himself in a difficult position.
Your Excellency is not thinking of retiring.
I can never retire.
And when my grandfather dies, will you serve my father?
If I'm spared to.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be spared, but you don't admire him, do you?
The capacity for admiring man is only moderately developed in me. It's an effect of my eye that is sharper for weaknesses than good qualities. Your father will want me to obey the majority. That requires a suppleness of character I don't possess.
Yes. But would you remain Chancellor?
It will be my duty.
Oh, you'd become a liberal then?
Oh, I've never been doctrinaire, liberal, conservative, reactionary. All these names seem to me useless luxuries, like the trappings of state. The Emperor gave me the Order of the Grand Cross. I would sooner have had a horse or a barrel of good Rhenish wine.
God, your cellar's full of wine.
Maybe enough, but I intend to drink more than 5,000 bottles of champagne before my life is out.
God, you eat and drink far too much. Sad for you.
I dare say I shall reform. I have a doctor now, but he asks questions, and I don't answer questions.
Then you must have a vet.
Oh, I'm chiefly suffering from age. It will kill me in the end. Two things have given me great pleasure in life. Wine and politics. Now the doctor has forbidden wine, and I'm to eat herrings and drink beer.
And what about politics?
There's nothing more to do in our lifetime except hold what we have.
Oh, but my dear Prince Bismarck... yes, do smoke if you wish.
Thank you.
My dear Prince Bismarck, I cannot possibly agree with that. There are always new situations to create.
Oh, a statesman can't create anything. He must wait and listen until he hears the steps of God sounding through events. Then leap up and grasp the hem of his garment.
When I am emperor, I'm going to make Germany a world power. With my talents and your experience.
I shall not be here.
Well, I hope you will be. But in any case, I must start learning now.
The best school would be a circus training under a juggler. All contending forces must be kept in the air, but only so high that one can catch them again. However, it wouldn't be a bad idea if Your Highness were to attend the Foreign Office. Say.
It's only Fritz trying to interfere again. Don't be angry, Bismarck.
The Crown Prince thwarts me at every step.
No, nobody thwarts you, not even me. And you won't have to put up with me much longer.
Oh, Majesty.
It's been no easy thing to rule under you. Now, of course, Willykins must visit the ministries. So much to learn in government now. So much. This.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Bismarck. When is the Tsar coming?
In June.
Well, I shall receive him, but I can't do too much of this standing. So perhaps my son...
The Crown Prince wants to go to England for his dear Mama-in-law's jubilee.
Now, don't be familiar.
I'm sorry, I mean for Her Majesty Queen Victoria.
She may have reigned longer than I have, but she's not so old. Don't let him go. But I won't have him or his wife interfere here. Yet.
He can hardly speak. There is a growth. They have been cauterizing the cords. Imagine the pain. Dr. Bergman wants to operate.
Having tortured your husband, they would kill him now. Will you allow it?
It is not for me to allow. I can only submit.
Well, I would say it was better to fall into the hands of God than into the hands of those men.
You'd have him die?
No, Your Highness. Your husband is heir. And my wife and I feel they shouldn't start cutting him. You should have better advice.
Whom do you suggest?
The Council of Ministers say you should send for a man called Mackenzie, who is better than anybody else in Europe. He's an Englishman, unfortunately. But I'm sure Your mother can procure him for you. It's not my affair, but I help in any way I can.
Prince Bismarck. You're very kind.
I spent my life serving the Crown Prince's family. The Emperor, poor old gentleman, is failing. And you, Prince William, is still too headstrong.
At least we agree about that.
In my opinion, sir.
Yes?
In my humble opinion.
Oh, come on, Holstein. What's your opinion?
The Crown Prince should not be allowed to leave Germany.
That's not important.
If the Emperor dies.
He will return.
Young Prince William hopes to represent both the Crown Prince and the Emperor.
Why?
To make an appearance, sir. I think Prince William has dramatic rather than political instincts.
Oh, let them both go. So they'll be out of the way when the Tsar arrives. There's more to state occasions than princes dressing up. There are three essentials for stability, Holstein. The trust of the people, the absolute isolation of the monarch, and friendship with Russia.
In June 1887, Tsar Alexander III of Russia paid a short visit to Berlin. The ruler of the greatest empire in Europe had turned for friendship and security to the German emperor and the German chancellor.
You're fat.
With cares, Your Majesty.
When are you going to come and see us again in St. Petersburg?
Oh, I was young when I visited St. Petersburg, Your Majesty.
Or do you prefer Moscow?
As I remember it, Moscow was all green. The fields were green, the roofs were green. When they brought me a boiled egg, I expected it to be green.
Well, you have business to do, I think, gentlemen. If you'll excuse me.
Your Majesty is tired.
A little. It's all this standing. Forgive me.
Of course.
Sit down, Bismarck. How old is the Kaiser?
Nearly 91.
And you?
Not yet 73.
The present patterns will alter. I shall not continue the Three Emperors League.
Why not, Your Majesty?
I never liked it. It was a contrivance of yours.
Of mine?
Like all the rest. You have a treaty with Austria.
Mm-hmm. Would you prefer another?
Of what nature?
We would remain neutral in any conflict between Russia and Austria.
For how long?
No fixed end.
Alexander agreed to a further treaty, provided Bismarck remained in power. As 1887 drew to a close, so did the reign of Kaiser Wilhelm I. But the Crown Prince was also dying.
Do that, that's good. You've done well, Bismarck. I've always been pleased with you. Always done the French give in.
The French war is long over, sir.
Please pass me that.
He has not long to go.
I am to sign for him.
Until your father can.
Oh, he never will. I understand there's an old Prussian law which states a man who cannot speak cannot rule.
Rubbish.
Well, in any case, my father hasn't long to go either. I've drafted a letter to be sent to the German princes on my accession. Have you read it?
Burn it. We can put on our watches, but time doesn't go any faster for it.
On the 9th of March, 1888, the old emperor died, and they took his body from the cathedral, where it had lain in state, to the mausoleum of the kings. Prince Wilhelm, now heir to the throne, represented the sickly new emperor, who was too ill to attend the funeral.
It's the last funeral I go to except my own. The new emperor is too ill to go out of doors. He stood at the window and saluted when we went past. He looked like a waxwork.
The emperor is dead. Long live the dying emperor.
Can still write. He called upon me to remain chancellor. I accepted under two conditions. No interference with his foreign relatives, and no government by parliament.
And did he agree, sir?
He had no choice.
There are rumors, sir.
Of what?
The Empress wishes to be made regent.
How much longer do I have to endure that woman? The old emperor used to say, "Save me, Bismarck, from petticoat government." Well, I manage her and her son. As soon as he's got the crown he wants, I can govern in peace again. Your Imperial Majesty?
Prince Bismarck, are you well?
Thank you, except for a touch of neuralgia here, which will not go.
It never will. My neuralgia never does.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Won't you sit down?
Thank you. And His Imperial Majesty?
He's very weak.
Oh,
They have put a tube in his throat. The operation was very lowering. The air in it makes a horrible noise, but at least he can breathe.
will he be able to...
Oh, his mind is alert. I hope he will do what he wants. In the meantime, I propose that all state affairs should be referred to me.
The Emperor is my master, Your Majesty. I take orders only from him while he's alive, and after from his son. I hope Your Majesty doesn't attempt to interfere.
That is hard and very cruel.
Maybe, Ma'am, but it's the law. May I see the Emperor?
Chancellor wishes you to sign something, my love. Have you the strength?
Your Majesty can rest assured that I'm your loyal servant and will be your heirs. And I will never forget that Her Majesty is my queen.
Vineyards, unless my sight deceive.
Ah, you have arrived, Holstein.
Yes, sir.
How's Berlin?
Confused and full of work as usual.
I never liked the place. I never wanted to live there. Here I have peace and nature.
And hunting.
I leave the deer alone now. I'd rather see them alive than drill holes in their pretty coats. I have my trees. You must see my trees, Holstein. I plant trees while Gladstone cuts his down. You see? That's the difference between a conservative and a liberal. How's His Majesty?
Dashing about?
The new emperor is like a balloon. If you don't keep fast hold of the string, you never know where he'll be off to.
He also talks.
I've been talking to people all my life. What I say is like water running down the back of a pelican.
Unfortunately, the more important a matter is, the more it seems to interest him.
He can talk, but he must act through me.
He has taken to dealing direct with ministers.
He has no right. Nor have they. I'm the Chancellor, until God calls me away.
It is very difficult, Your Highness. The Emperor is surrounded by active men who advise him to rule through the court, that is, through them.
I taught those dogs to bark. Now, if they think I'm to be frightened by the noise, they're very much mistaken. Let me play the line, too. I'll roar. That will do any man's heart good to hear me. You read Shakespeare?
I have no time, sir. You really must return to Berlin, sir. It is impossible otherwise. Even I must follow one line or the other.
Even you? Even you are going to desert me.
Either the Emperor must rule, sir, or you.
I will not be put down like an old dog.
Russia is the enemy, gentlemen. Therefore, we must be strong and united, and above all, we must have good morale. Now, for example, these miners in Westphalia are on strike. They're overworked and underpaid. I intend to make the owners provide better wages and conditions.
There's a ministry for that.
I wish to be king of the poor, Chancellor, as well as of the rich, like my illustrious forebear, Frederick the Great.
Mutineers, get the police out and shoot them.
And plunge us all into civil war? I don't intend to start my reign by shedding the blood of my subjects. Well, what do the rest of you say? I see. I have no ministers. You're all Bismarcks.
If Your Majesty insists on these dangerous policies...
Yes?
Your Majesty should constitutionally consult his Chancellor.
You're never in Berlin.
This is a royal order made by His late Majesty in 1852. If I may draw Your Majesty's attention to it, it forbids other ministers to approach the crown without the consent of the Minister-President, which I also am. Your Majesty.
I have been waiting for half an hour.
But I had no idea.
I sent you a message.
Nobody told me. I was in the garden playing with the dogs.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Will Your Majesty please sit down?
No. I have a busy morning. I see that you are not exactly overwhelmed with the business of state.
Oh, I see all the necessary papers every evening after dinner. I sit and go through them.
Everything is referred to you.
Too much. It's too much.
Yes, I agree. Too much.
Has anything gone wrong? Something considerable to carry your majesty here that early? I feel imperfectly shaved and incorrectly dressed. Please, do your majesty sit down.
I prefer that we stand. You have invoked the order of my royal forebear?
It was a law made to establish the position of the First Minister.
Which I will now revoke.
Your Majesty doesn't intend to diminish the chancellorship.
I have the power to. Do you wish to sign it? Or will you still oppose me?
I oppose what is unwise. I have served you, your father, your grandfather, but your Majesty wishes to do everything.
I wish to be obeyed.
Oh, you find any number of people who will obey. You can be like the Tsar and rule through decrees. I stand for good government.
And I do not. Just because you are elderly, do not suppose that you may speak as you wish.
You're speaking as two men. I as the old, and you as the young one. But man to man, your powers stop at my door.
Then who is to rule Germany, the Emperor or his Chancellor?
The two together. But I will not serve in chains.
I am your sovereign!
I've worn my yoke long enough for better masters. You may take my papers if you want to cover it up! Oh. I beg your Majesty's pardon. I spoke hastily.
And very stupidly. What is this? The Russian imperial crest?
This is nothing. That's private papers.
It's a letter, isn't it?
From the Tsar, it's personal.
It's about me.
His Imperial Majesty honors me with his confidence.
Why should he write to you about me?
It's conversation.
He is a badly brought up boy of bad faith.
It's his opinion.
I will not have it. In future, all state affairs are to be referred to me.
Your Majesty expects me to resign?
You may write your letter when you wish. I will accept it. I'm not ungrateful, but I am not a child. I'll say you are ill.
I am Bismarck! Your Majesty! We can arrive at some arrangement.
Prince Bismarck?
Thank you for seeing me, Mom. I have come from His Imperial Majesty.
That is usually exhausting. Are you well?
Passably. The muscles of my face are like a set of bells. Once put into motion, they will never stop ringing. But you suffer yourself.
What have you come to say to me?
I was woken badly. His Majesty called at the Chancellery, and I had not been told. Our meeting was sordid. I will not bore you with the details. The Emperor has commanded me to resign.
I'm sorry.
Are you?
I am sorry if it was done brutally. Not surprised.
I must confess I did get into a rage, and I made a mistake. But I shall offend your Majesty.
I'm past offense.
It's not important. I think I should have watched over your son more carefully since he came to the throne.
You watched him well enough before.
I have settled all Europe except him. I think it's commonplace that one whom one has nourished should bring one down. But it is not pleasant.
Why do you tell me?
have come to ask for your Majesty's help. I do not relish oblivion.
I cannot help you, even if I would.
I thought only death could move me.
Now you know what it is to lose one's position.
I've never cared for the trappings of position. I've cared for power, and that is a hard duty. You think it was easy? And that I didn't have any feelings? Often, the slightest thing assumes vast proportions in the night and lies like a mountain on my chest. I've spent whole nights hating. And yet, in the mornings, I live for it again. I am the iron support of this country. You must speak to the Emperor for me.
I'm sorry. You yourself, Prince Bismarck, have destroyed all my influence with my son. I can do nothing. We dig our own graves.